Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Alvaro Jaramillo. We are Life List, a birding podcast. I'm here. We're all here. Molly Brown is here, and George Armistead is here.
Hey.
Hey, folks.
So, lots going on. Molly just got back from our neighboring country of Cuba.
Yes.
People been crazy about solar and geologic events going on.
Yep.
Earthquakes and hey, we never thought about that. Maybe they're related. The earthquake caused the eclipse. You know how these people like make correlations about everything.
This is a Nostradamus. This is
No,
Nostradamus.
that's just
predictions.
Dumbass. There's no prediction there. This is you can't predict the past. Yeah. We're all really good at that.
I feel like Nostradamus could do it somehow.
Yeah. And then I think we should start with something very, very important because we talk often about pizza. In this, I had pizza yesterday. I hardly ever have pizza, and it was bad. But that's separate from
California pizza, right? Yeah.
Well, no, whatever.
That's a hot take.
There's no California pizza. We have.
Wow, that's an even hotter take
here.
Just put down. Yeah.
But Detroit pizza, it is a thing.
It really is.
When I went to this spot in Santa Cruz that we talked about, a few episodes ago, and I thought maybe this is part of the joke because they said somewhat authentic or inauthentic Detroit style. Was it a joke? It's not a joke. It's serious. A square, pan pizza, kind of deep dish, kind of crust.
I like that deep dish.
Yeah. And it was really good. The stuff I had there in Santa Cruz, this inauthentic Detroit style pizza was good. But we have been, a couple of people wrote us and said, yes, Detroit style is a real thing. They described it. They liked it, I think. And neither of them was from Detroit. So the other question is, does anybody in Detroit listen to us?
Oh, I got you covered. Jason Weckstein, he texted me immediately upon hearing this, and he said, George, you can tell Alvaro that, yes, there is Detroit-style pizza. Look up Buddy's Pizza. He said, that's a really good Detroit-style pizza. And he said, also, George, it has cheese, so you will eat it. So,
there we go. But I'm
Jason
glad
he's a serious Michigan man. So
we clarified this, and you wonder if right across the border there in Windsor, Canada, they have Windsor style Detroit pizza. I don't know if it's crossed, if it's migrated over to the Canadian side. But
we need to hear from our Ontario listeners on that. Yeah,
most people don't think about Detroit as being right on the border, but it's one of the few cities in the U.S. that's right on the border.
That's the trivia question, right? What is the country that you hit if you go due south of Detroit? What's the first country you hit? And I believe it is Canada.
Due south. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that could be. And due east as well, right?
Yeah. Like if you go south, you'll hit Windsor. Windsor is south.
Yeah, kind of like there's like a curve in the river.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, Molly, you have been somewhere special, I think. At least I think it's a special place. Want to tell us about your trip to Cuba?
Yeah, I definitely do. I got back a few days ago, so I was in Cuba for 2 weeks. And yep, it was as special as I've expected it to be. It was one of the most unique places I've been. Just overall, it was just really, really cool. So I already told you both, I did recordings throughout the trip, and I have a full episode that will go out on our bonus content for that. So that'll have the whole run through of what the tour was like and everything. But to talk about it a little bit now, the more that I prepared to go to Cuba, the more excited I was. I was excited about Caribbean birding years ago, but Cuba just I've studied Cuba for a while now, not just the birds, but the history and culture as well as I was preparing to go on this. And that's kind of led to just this whole deep dive into different parts of the Caribbean. But I I don't remember learning anything next to nothing about Cuba in school, right?
Right.
So it's a place that I know from a very far distance and kind of have just heard little things that generally portray the US attitude toward Cuba
Right.
without understanding a lot of it. So
Yeah, a lot of
the
the Cuba stuff, kind of the major Cuba politics stuff happened way before you were, even any of us were around. I mean, and it's kind of older
mhm,
people really see Cuba quite differently than younger people, right? Like
mhm.
there's a whole um, time element to it too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So the more that I was so excited to see because I well, there's just so much of Cuba that's preserved really well. I was thinking about this too. I travel mostly in North and South America. I haven't spent a ton of time in Europe or other parts of the world that have a lot of older infrastructure. But when you're
Hmm.
standing in Havana, you're literally seeing buildings and infrastructure from the 1500s stacking through every century up till now,
Right.
and so cool. So the historical aspect of that felt amazing. Seeing figures portrayed throughout the towns that we were in and different things, not just figures from the 60s and the most recent revolution, but all the way back to the start of Cuba's revolutions from
Yeah,
what
Marti and all the
yeah,
original.
Marti's statues everywhere. It was so cool. It just felt like being in like a living museum everywhere you went,
Yeah.
and it was really fascinating. So that
And
was awesome.
and the thing is, like, a lot of people come back and say it's like one of the most unique countries they've ever been to, and then the flight is like 35 minutes. Like
Yeah.
it's closer to Miami than, your house is to
Yeah,
Miami, like that's what's
by a
crazy
lot.
to me. It's like,
It's about the shortest flight I've ever done.
yeah, yeah. And you're just sort of thinking like, this is insane that, our next door neighbor is so, in a sense, so culturally inaccessible to most Americans,
Hmm.
and vice versa, like it's just weird. And for a birder or, naturalist, it's a cool place,
Yeah.
just so much to see. And the people I find are so friendly, like crazy friendly. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if that was
I
your thought too. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I had as many just like down to earth, like normal conversations like I would have if I ran into a friend on the street here in Cuba than anywhere else as well. It
yeah,
felt so casual. It was
yeah,
really cool. I didn't feel like a tourist in those ways, just the way that we talked about things. So that was really cool. I'm really glad that I have birded through South Florida and the Keys before to have a
yeah,
greater appreciation of the change in climate and habitat and that sort of thing. But getting to Cuba's huge.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the diversity of habitats in Cuba is huge. So I really enjoyed that. Pretty early on in our tour, we go up to the Cuban Keys that are on the north side, right? So then you kind of have a feel for how that compares to the Florida Keys and South Florida and the Bahamas and that sort of thing. And then you just take off going west, and it was everywhere we went felt like an entirely new world.
hmm,
It was really cool to experience that too. Both the habitats and the cities we visited actually each had a lot of different
right, yeah.
feels.
And there's a lot of areas that are, old mountains, which is so
Mm-hmm.
unlike Florida, right? Like Florida is like a
Yes.
flat
Yeah.
place. And then you get these mountains and, maybe Arturo might say, oh, this is a good place to see, white-collared swift or something. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
White-collared swifts, and it's like they nest behind the waterfalls. You're like, waterfalls, so that, is there a waterfall in Florida, that's more than, 30 feet high? I don't
Good
know.
question.
So, and so I always think that is interesting too, because people compare Cuba to Florida in so many ways. They're so close. They're kind of almost the same length,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they're geologically night and day, and bird-wise night and day too.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah. Understanding Florida enough to realize that is really fascinating. So the other thing that I want to say about Cuba, and again, this is sort of the island birding feel, and a little bit of a personal thing as well. I've been guiding more. I've been doing more of these trips and kind of thinking about like what makes a trip that I'm guiding something that's uniquely mine, and what am I wanting my feel on my tours to be like that gets passed on to the whole group. And Cuba is just the perfect place that matched the way that I like to go birding, because we're constantly looking for new things, but a lot of the major targets are birds that are really widespread throughout the island.
hmm
And you have this relatively finite number of your main targets that are the endemic birds that are gettable. So you maybe have a couple targets for the day, especially after once you've settled in a few days and you kind of
yeah.
have a feel for what's going on. And then you get to slow down and just enjoy the birds, and you're not constantly pressured to find more and more and more. And I really like that really slow, studious pace.
Yeah.
And I think that birding really lends itself to that.
And getting to see those same special endemics over and over again, or many of them, not all of them, but like you say, that
Yeah.
you get to see these birds at different angles, different places, and I like that too about the Caribbean in general. I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about some of the other places I've been, but that while as you're picking up the new stuff, you get to say, oh yeah, well here's this bird, this awesome bird again that I saw for the first time yesterday. Now I'm seeing it in this way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like for example, at one point we were looking for Zapata sparrow in the Coco, and it was just kind of slow. It was raining a little bit and things were pretty quiet. So there's a little bit of pressure to try to find the specific bird that has populations throughout the country. And it wasn't our only time, because we're birding slow and all these things too. It wasn't like no
hmm
sort of panicky feel. But then instead you're like, well, while we're waiting to see if activity picks up, there are a couple toadies around. Let's just hang out with them for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or, it's really, really fun like that. And you can look at other taxa too. So we spent a good amount of time on reptiles and butterflies, and just poking around into other things that we could find.
Yeah, there's some cool lizards, as we kind of
Yes.
talked last time. Those little curly tails and the
Mm-hmm.
anoles or anoles.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of different stuff to look at. Snakes. I don't know if you saw any snakes, but I have seen a few snakes, but there's multiple species on the island of snakes, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I guess you got to know where to find them, but it's
Yeah, I started asking about that partway through. We didn't have any snakes, and
right.
I was certainly keeping an eye out. But it sounded, Arturo made it sound like if you spend more time, particularly in the west and the more mountainous areas,
hmm
then that are really good odds of getting more boas and that type of thing. But yeah, there are a lot of endemic snakes as well. Several razors,
Yeah.
and I think the boa is probably the most common and widespread that you could run into. And then some worm snakes, or maybe blind snakes.
Right. Yeah.
A lot
Those
of
little.
really funky little things. Yeah.
Yeah, and little tiny frogs too. There's some tiny, tiny, tiny frogs. I don't know if you ever got to see those.
Mm-mm.
And there's the regular sort of tree frogs and
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, we
forth.
had a
But
tree frog in one of the toilets at our stop.
you
So
know, I got to ask you though. Okay. So you got to describe this because I'd forgotten. It's April, and April is crab season. What?
oh
What?
yes.
What? What? I mean, the
Yes.
first time you see this, you're like, "Oh my
Oh my
god!"
god.
Like,
These
Yeah.
land crabs.
These are land crabs
Yeah.
that, yes, are. Yeah. So we were almost halfway through the tour at this point. We'd been up in the Keys, and then we were kind of cutting down across the country, working our way west, and getting over to Zapata Swamp, Bay of Pigs. That area is just absolutely amazing. Yep, and we took off one morning as it was sort of a travel day, and we were working our way through, and just out of nowhere, the road is black. I mean, solid. These land crabs that are pretty big. What, like 10 inches or
Yeah, they're
more? I mean,
big.
so they're big crabs and have gone to the shore to lay eggs, right? And they were coming back for the most part. So they were all going back for the day. And it was rough. I guess in more ways than one. There's not really anything to do to avoid these crabs on the road.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's not much meat on them, as I recall, either, right? It's mostly sort of chitinous material. It's not like you could. People probably eat them, but
ask all the vultures.
I don't. Yeah, no, they don't. They don't
people
eat
aren't
them.
doing much.
Yeah.
No, because there's something like the meat makes you ill. You know, I was told that there's a white species that you can eat, and then the red ones you can't eat. But the vultures, like, they start kind of pecking on. You know, they're by the roads, kind of, and you know.
Oh yeah, vultures and caracaras lined
up. Yeah, eating all the stuff.
They can't. They must really be working for it too, because they're pretty flat for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they kind of run out of the way.
Yeah, there's just
but they wouldn't all
millions,
make it. Yeah, and you would just go through.
You say this with like palpable regret here.
Oh
Molly.
My God, it was. I started closing my eyes. This happened over a few days. At first, it was like, wow, this is crazy, and like you couldn't take your eyes off of it, or at least I couldn't. I have video, and then it was just. But it would be really concentrated areas of like a couple hundred yards.
Yeah.
Yep, we passed one car that had a couple people in front of it with, like, I don't know, fronds or something that they were using to try to sweep them out of the way. And it would take forever to do that. The problem was we went through one, and Albert, you might know the bus driver, Carlos. I think he works with Arturo a lot.
Yeah,
so
I know a Carlos, so I don't know if it's
sounds right.
Same guy. Yeah,
it's probably the same one.
Yeah.
But so he was our driver, and I know he's done a lot of these birding tours. So we went and kind of creeped through. We were all watching the first time, and we got to the hotel, and his tires were filled with claws.
Yeah.
It was so if you went slow enough, they would throw their claws up in the air and kind of have that defensive position as they backed off. So, as horrible as this is to say, the most effective way was to go fast and not give them a chance to react. That being said,
there's definitely a horror movie to be made here somehow.
And I got to give people like a little inkling of there is humanity in the world. That there was a woman, I heard it was a woman from England who went through this, and she's like, this is crazy. So she had money, and she paid for underpasses for the crabs, because, like you say, they're in specific areas, and they actually built a couple of underpasses for the crabs to go through, and it works. Like you can. I know that there's a couple places on the road where they have them. And
that's really cool.
But obviously, the government of Cuba has got all sorts of other things to worry about. It's not going to be making underpasses for crabs, right?
Not a big priority.
Not a big priority.
That's how it felt.
But that is crazy, though, the crabs. And then if sometimes you're walking in areas where there's some, like maybe near the hotels, and like they almost like they see you and they do that defensive posture, and they all do it at the same time. It looks like kind of like a Michael Jackson Thriller video, you know?
It's like a wave of them. Yeah, it's all kind of happening. It's like, I guess it's kind of like, you know how the description of birds in flight, like when starlings are doing a murmuration and one is reacting to the seven. It's like that in slow motion.
Right.
I'm picturing them all going like, hee hee.
Yeah, they really are.
Hands up.
Yep.
You almost feel like if you put your hand in front of one and got it to go up higher, you know, like they all,
like, you know,
eventually would, you know, like dominoes all fall backwards on each other, you know, like I'm sure we could artificially generate that. The crabs are pretty crazy. I remember
seeing them when I was there, but it sounds like it's a completely different situation there in April. What you just saw. I remember being kind of creeped out by them, just birding along. But That sounds
I
pretty
can't
wild.
imagine what it would be like to be walking through a trail with all of them. They just like it's just like the ground is moving as you can see
Yeah.
it kind of receding back into the woods. It's amazing. And it only happens at like morning and dusk. So if you're driving
Yeah.
around in the middle of the day, it's okay. We avoided them as much as we could after
Yeah.
that.
I think before you went, there was the question of like what bird might be the one that you come back and think, wow, what that was crazy, or I didn't expect that. What do you have
Mm-hmm.
one or two that that are kind of stayed in your mind as like wackadoodle things there in Cuba?
Well, toady is a super easy answer for that.
Yeah.
Being my first toady that I had seen, I was not prepared for how small they were. Like
Yeah.
no
A lot
stat
of
would
people
have
say
given
that.
me
I've heard
that.
other people say that like
Yeah.
they're expecting to be like twice the size that they are, 2 or 3 times the size that they are, and then they're like, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
god, they're tiny."
Yeah. It was really, really cool. So yeah, toady was just totally blew me away. And again, it's super common bird that we had every single day. So it's not like you see it once. It's like it's a constant companion while you're there. Cuban trogon being very similar in that they're just ever present in the
It's a
vast
good looking
majority of
bird.
habitats that we're in. Yeah. We had a really, really nice experience with Zapata wren.
Oh yeah.
So that was really nice. It just came out, and this is kind of, it's sort of mangrove swamp that blends into a bit of deciduous forest, but then they're out in these like marshlands that are kind of in between. I'm not describing this very well, but
And
it feels like quite a convergence of habitat.
it's like coarse marshland, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a soft, you know, marsh, like the plants are really coarse. I remember that kind of thing, that it's almost like a place where you could get cut up if you're just wearing your shorts, But
Yeah.
that's what I remember about the marsh, that it was like, whoa, this is like a weird plant, whatever it is, it's not
Mm-hmm.
cattail or what. Yeah.
Yep. That's a great way to put it. So yeah, we found a wren fairly quickly, and this is sort of a cutout trail that's got. We were across the river from a big, vast marshland, and then there were more trees and such on the side that we were on, and it was a fairly small river there, or I guess you just call it swamp, but the
Yeah.
water was moving a good bit. So we saw it from across and then played for it once, and it came over, but then it just stayed. We spent half an hour with it. A couple of it just sat on the ground, and it was just coming in and out and kind of feeding. And then again, there was Zapatas sparrows there as well, so it was kind of poking out with them and then going back in the reeds, and we were all kind of sitting quietly and listening to it just scurrying along. So it's a really cool sparrow or wren, and it was a cool experience too.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
moment was really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm always blown away, like I said last time, that it looks so big. It kind of looks like a huge house wren that sings like a marsh wren. Like it's just like nothing makes sense, It's sort of all on its own kind of thing. But yeah, that's neat to sort of relive Cuba. I haven't been there for a bit, so
Yeah, I guess so.
It's kind of be nice to head back, and we're hoping you can head back in December if we get enough people interested, right? So
yeah,
that'd be really cool. Different season, slightly different, little cooler. I don't know how hot it was.
It was pretty hot on a few days, and it seemed that we were on the tail end of migrants or overwintering birds that were coming back north as well, like Louisiana water thrush being a good example. We had one, I guess, on the trip.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good for April still. Like to have one left over.
I was surprised to have it. So yeah, it'd be cool to see those wintering birds too, because that's just a fantastic way to get to see these birds in a really up close way. I mean, this isn't in the treetops here in West Virginia. This is at eye level in Cuba. So that's a huge plus as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Shorebirds too.
That time of year, there's just a lot more warbler activity, and I got to ask you that I'm figuring you went to see the Cuban bee hummingbird at the place that we usually go to. That's a wild place, right? The little the
Oh
man's
yeah.
house.
Yes. Yeah.
What was your thought about all that and the hummingbird itself?
Yeah. Well, at that point, we had just been doing, your very typical birding that wasn't really around any other people at all.
Hmm.
um, maybe doing some little trails or a little part of reserve where, like, I don't know, there were people running horses through while we were around, something like
Hmm.
that. And then we get to this town and we're going to look for bee hummingbird. And we start passing a couple houses that have like t-shirts out that have bee hummingbirds on them and the little wood carved birds just right at the end of this street. And then, yeah, you just go in this beautiful backyard. I guess those are the only hummingbird feeders that I saw the entire trip, but their
Right.
backyard's filled with hummingbird feeders. And just immediately you have half a dozen bee hummingbirds mixed in with Cuban emeralds. So it was pretty cool. It was a drastic change of pace from what we had been doing up until
Yeah.
that point.
And
And it was fun.
it's just crazy. And I mean, I remember the man was telling me that during the hurricane, that was, 10 years ago or whatever, they were
Mm-hmm.
so worried about the hummingbirds that they corralled the hummingbirds into the house. Well, yeah, seriously, then they gave them food. They put the feeders inside the house,
Wow.
and then they gave them food so that they wouldn't die because of the hurricane. I'm just thinking, like, you know, as a biologist, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't, but as a human, I'm like, oh yeah, these people love the hummingbirds. Like they
Mm-hmm.
could not help themselves,
It's
right?
part of their
Like,
livelihood
it's
too.
part of their
Well, right,
livelihood too,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
and smallest
just so
living
funny.
bird in the world for folks that may not know the bee
Good point.
hummingbird.
Yes, that is the smallest bird in the world. So it's a draw for non-birders who visit Cuba too. Like another group of people came in, stayed for 5 minutes and saw the bird and left.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, seeing the smallest bird in the world, that's a beautiful hummingbird with really beautiful color blue. So they're pretty unique in that way too.
Yeah.
It looks like the larger males average, are average less than 2.5 inches. They're like average size for males is less than 2.5 inches.
Yeah, it's what, 3 grams or something?
And that including the beak, right?
Yeah, I assume.
Yeah, if it's tail beak to, yeah. So
yeah, and the females are even smaller, and they have an average weight of less than 2 grams.
wow.
It really is tiny.
Put a postage stamp on that, and
Yeah, I think like snowcap is getting close to that territory. Is another very tiny hummingbird, and vervain hummingbird, another Caribbean species of hummingbird in Jamaica.
Chilean wood star is really small too.
Chilean wood star.
I was going to say one of the sexes can overlap in its size. One or two other species. I thought that was the female, but maybe it's the male if they're smaller. But
yeah.
But they end up the smallest. Not much.
Yeah, on average.
That's right. Yeah.
And that little backyard is pretty nice too. Like there's often black-throated blue warblers, and there's sometimes like
that was where we had our water
orioles.
thrush.
Water thrush. Oh wow.
Yeah, that was it. It was in the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking a backyard, but it's got all these birds, and they have little bird boxes that they put up for like parrots.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they're active, but they were active. I've seen flickers in the back, that we're using.
We didn't have flicker.
Yeah, we used no, maybe it was a West Indian woodpecker. Sorry, that was using one of these logs that they put like just logs with holes in them, like a bird box, but it's not really a living tree. It's a cool place.
Yeah, it's just attached to another tree. Yeah.
Yeah, that just sort of said, oh, people are interested in these birds and nature, and they've gotten totally into it. And it's like you said, it's their livelihood, George. But I'm so glad it was a good trip. People seem to be happy, and saw lots of pictures everybody's taking, and the old cars, that is always a big hit with folks. Yeah.
What about bare-legged owl? You guys see bare-legged owl?
We did have bare-legged owl. Legged. Oh, I shouldn't bring this up. Bare-legged owl.
Oh boy, here we go.
I'm just going to keep on going though. Yeah, we did in Zapata Swamp as well, and it's their nesting season. So there are a lot of different trees that can suit their nesting sites. But yeah, we found one that just popped right out of a broken off decaying tree and was sitting up and watching us, and kind of sat up and hooked its feet on the front and peered over for a little bit and then tucked back in. And yeah, that entertained us for a while.
So at least a couple of these birds that we've mentioned here, bare-legged owls, zapata wren, zapata sparrow, all monotypic genera. So there's a lot of that uniqueness there. I think that's one of the things that really appeals to me about Cuba and about any place that has a lot of like really highly distinct things.
Yeah, and the warblers are an endemic family, yellow-headed warbler and oriented warbler, which are, you see them and you're like, yeah, they're close to a warbler, but not really. I mean, they have a funny beak, like a tanager-ish beak, and you can see why they're on their own thing, spindalis
Yeah,
and all
they're
that too.
big and they're chattery and seem very social.
Yeah. No,
I guess they're settling into nesting season as well, but they flock, right? When they're not, and they're moving around and being super interactive with each other.
They like vines. It's sort of like crawl up vines and so forth. It's just a wild place, that's so close. And
A world away.
There was a time when people during the Obama years thought maybe Obama was going to sort of fully stop all the sanctions and all that, and allow, in a sense, through more Americans going there, somehow allow the politics to sort of sort out through sort of people to people kind of exchanges, but then that got shut down by other administrations, and it's kind of like been now, it's just sort of there, but nobody's making any moves one way or the other.
It's worth pointing out too, there are a lot of other tourists there from Canada and from Europe and from Asia. Even though this is outside of or getting to the end of the high season, I'd say, because I know they get most tourists in winter. We're actually at a hotel in Cococayo, and we're kind of sitting getting coffee before we headed out for the day. And a few people from our group had got there before Arturo or I, and there was a woman sitting there having her coffee, and she had, I think, her camera out, and one of the participants started talking to her, and then she had a field guide that was the Cuban field guide, and she was a birder from Canada. And Arturo sat down beside her and got to sign her field guide and talk to her about birding. And it was really cool. Yeah, she seemed super surprised. I was surprised that happened too. That was really fun.
That's cool. Well, I think I look forward to hearing the full Cuba videos and all that you put together. It's going to be cool to see. I know that people have a certain amount of interest, yet also sometimes misconceptions about going to Cuba. So if anybody wants to, talk about it, you can, reach me at Alvaro's Adventures, and we can tell you about how it all works in terms of visiting Cuba, and the bird survey stuff that happens. That basically is what you do when you're there. You're part of essentially a survey project, and that's how we go to Cuba. What else has been happening? Did anybody see the eclipse, actually, totality?
Totality, no.
You didn't drive to totality?
Yeah, I dipped on totality. 86% totality was as close as I got.
Yeah,
our Hillstar trip,
100% or nothing.
Yeah, our Hillstar trip in Texas, as you'll remember, Al, we were talking, I think, when we were recording last. Weather did not look good. And we were basically shuddering and biting our nails, and just there was a lot of anxiety. But yeah, Holly Merker and Whitney Lanfranco, they prayed to the birding and weather gods, and their prayers were answered, because it was pretty miraculous, actually. What we actually did was we took in the eclipse, our group did, at Whitney Lanfranco's family property, which is just happened to be in the path of totality, sort of near the town of Evant, Texas. which is really maybe what 2.5 hours south of Dallas. And yeah, we were a nervous wreck, but it basically cleared like, I think like they said it was like a half hour. I'm going to get the dirt from Holly actually as soon as we're done here. Her and I are going to catch up. But it sounded like it was like a half hour before the eclipse kind of started. They got to watch it all unfold, and then they had clear skies for totality. Like for I don't know, maybe half, for over a minute, and then it started to get cloudy. And they lost it at that point, but they'd seen so much and so well, and they got really beautiful imagery. And so I was as excited about that as anything. I took in the eclipse down on the Eastern Shore with my folks, me and Kristen. Sully was with us, did not seem to notice. The dog did not seem to be too keen on or aware of what was happening, but we really enjoyed. Even 86%, I have to say I'm pretty damn keen at this point now to do totality. I think next time I'm going to be pursuing opportunities to see that, because this was cool, and I really loved the light while it got, when it was at its peak of totality. Like I said, we were 86% on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, but like the light was really weird, and it was really eerie, and I can't imagine what that would be like if you were actually in the zone of totality. So I really want to experience that. And also, like, I didn't notice anything crazy in terms of animal behavior, but what I did notice is like a robin perked up, kind of giving that song like they do as it gets dark. And, they can give it at other times as well, but it just felt to me like this robin was like, okay, this, I'm going to sing now. And then like during the darkest part, just all bird sounds ceased for like, what felt like several minutes. And there was just no, it was so quiet. The whole time we'd been watching, and, there's chipping sparrows and eastern bluebirds and, so much stuff, brown thrasher sounding off, a lot of birds. And then all of a sudden just everything goes quiet. And that was really noticeable, actually. So that was awesome. I have never experienced any kind of solar eclipse before. So, that was thrilling. I know, Al, you've experienced total eclipses in the past.
One, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But let me tell you, it really is like you can be at 98% totality, and it's not the same thing.
That's what everybody says. Yeah, that's experienced totality. Yeah,
yeah, and part of it too is like, when total eclipse is happening, you can take off your eclipse glasses. And you can look at the thing, with you can take photographs of it. You're just seeing the corona and the whole thing, which is not visible for you, like unless you get to that point. And not only the light changes, but the wiggly, these waves and all this other stuff, and the creepy change in wind and perhaps even I was thinking, like when you said that it cleared up for them that half an hour before the eclipse. That's often happens, like because it cools down, and low lying clouds actually dissipate because of the actual eclipse temperature change and all that. I've seen two, maybe when I was younger, maybe a third partial eclipse, and it's not even comparable to the feeling. So yeah, you better chase that eclipse.
Yeah. I'm gonna do it.
Everybody should if you can.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good advice. Could you see what percent was it in your area?
It was not much. It was like a little bite taken out of the sun, but I had glasses from the last, so we kind of looked at it, and it was cool, but I can't say it, we didn't get any change in temperature or anything. It's just not enough here. But I did hear a story, though, that some First Nations people used to think that what happened is like a big squirrel. Your dad will like this, George. Started gnawing on the sun, like it not on the sun, and that's why
Seriously.
it went dark. Yeah, and then they did a ritual to scare the squirrel, and the squirrel would leave, and the sun would kind of grow back.
Oh, I'm going
That
to
was,
have to look into this.
so
This
yeah,
is good.
that's what I heard.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which peoples had that story, but I like it. It's a way to explain something they saw, and they're like, "Oh, here's that squirrel again." Like I've heard about this. We got to do the anti-squirrel dance, get it to leave.
The Choctaw sounds like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Choctaw people shared the tale of, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Fvnilusa, Fvnilusa, a mischievous and hungry black squirrel that tried to eat the sun.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Armistead Senior gonna like that one.
Yeah, he is going to like that. Yeah, that's good.
Anything squirrel. And okay, the earthquake, the massive New Jersey earthquake. Have you rebuilt your backyard there, George?
Dude, it's pretty wild. I mean, it was like, the eclipse is the 8th, have a day to chill, get home. And then 2 days later, right? Was the earthquake. Do I have that right? I think that's right.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And
you would know.
I'm trying to remember the order of events, but like, yeah, it really was jarring. I was never scared or anything, but it was just jarring. And it was like, whoa. And we were in the kitchen and Kristen and I were chatting, and I think I was flossing. And and I was like
I might be going a little too hard on the flossing here, like things are really shaking around.
Yeah. And so I was like kind of in the bathroom and came out like, what the hell is happening? And I looked at her and she goes, "Is this an earthquake?" And I was like, yeah, it is an earthquake. And yeah, it was just like, and my initial thought was, as funny, is exactly the same as several others you talked to, and I guess it's not an uncommon thought, was like, is there a new subway system that like I'm just like not aware of? Like, it felt like a big train going through below the house, and
Right.
we're out in suburban area. There are no subways here.
No.
And I was like, that is the only explanation. And we immediately like rushed outside to be like, is something else happening? Is there like,
mushroom cloud in the distance?
Yeah, exactly. Like what? And then like we noticed like several other neighbors had all gone outside at the same time. Like everyone wide-eyed, like, what the hell was
What's
that?
going on?
Yeah. So it wasn't, like I said, actually, it was like sort of a fun-sized earthquake. It was, it was a 4.8, I guess, 4.7, 4.8, depending on which authority you go with. I mean, that's a pretty noticeable earthquake. It was not far from here. It was basically right between, it was a little closer to New York, but right between Philly and New York. I'd only experienced one other earthquake really here about 11, 12 years ago. And that was a 6.0, but we were a little further from it. So it actually felt kind of similar, I would say, in magnitude here. That one I remember literally like, I was home alone, and we were at that time I lived in an old Trinity, they call it. I don't know if they use that term outside of Philadelphia. Trinity is like each floor is its own room. So a small house, like, and each floor is one room basically. And so I was on the first floor, and I was like, what the hell is happening? And I ran up because I was like, oh my God, our glass bookshelf in our brick house on the second floor is like, I could hear it. And I was like, it's going to fall over. Wow. So I ran up to hold it up. And as I'm holding up a glass bookshelf on the second floor of a brick house, I'm like, pretty sure this is what they told me not to do if you're ever in an earthquake.
Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Don't get underneath the glass.
Yeah. Glass bookshelves and brick houses, just not probably not the way to go. But yeah, anyway, it was pretty dramatic, and it was like, I guess there was minor damage here and there closer to the epicenter
Right.
in Tewksbury, New Jersey, but yeah, I mean, it was thrilling to feel the power of that quake, but also nice that it wasn't any more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised at first. I thought, these Easterners, they're going so drama over this smallish earthquake. But it turns out that in the East, the earthquakes, often are shallower, so they're felt more, and they travel way, way, way more, from the epicenter than in the West. I looked at some maps.
I saw that graphic you shared.
Yeah,
Basically,
it was wild.
Yeah, and it would explain maybe some of that. Like, I did think it was like you immediately sent me the lawn chair that had fallen over.
Yeah,
We'll rebuild, and I was like, I was counting down the minutes. I was like, this is any minute here.
He's gonna have some sarcastic joke.
Yep, smart ass. Yeah,
smart ass. Yeah,
yeah.
That lawn chair, that fallen over lawn chair, went around a lot that day from multiple people.
Yep.
Independent. They found it.
It made the rounds. Yep. And but I was like, I mean, it was definitely stirring, shall I say?
Yeah, and it's good that we can laugh about it, right? Like if it was something more, right?
That's what I say, like fun sized, like yeah.
And I gather there were some people that had experienced major earthquakes that in the East. I mean, not in the East, elsewhere in the world that were in this one, and they had like kind of a PTSD kind of.
Yeah, I could imagine that
reaction. That would not be kind fun. Of a bummer. But
that would not be fun at all.
Well, I have a question on this.
Yeah.
So I saw your Facebook post about this, Alvaro. So I knew that you'd said that the magnitude was different or felt differently. But what is the criteria that determines the magnitude of an earthquake? Because that was news to me that a 5.0 in one place could be experienced differently than a 5.0 in another place.
Yeah, like it's the actual strength of the earthquake. They have calculations as to like sort of the power of the movement, the seismic movement, that I don't know exactly how that works. But even the shake, the feel of the earthquake at surface level differs even anywhere, right? Depending on the type of soil you're on, how far away from it you are, and also how deep it was. So all sorts of things. So you can have a 6 that feels stronger than a 7, depending on where you felt it. Like, I mean, if it was from the same place and you're in the same place, it's going to feel stronger. But in some places, if you're like on hard like old rock, your house or your place is sitting on granite, you're not going to feel it nearly as much as if you're sitting on soil that could be wet, or sandy, So there's a lot of things so they now have like a feel map that they provide, as well as the actual, strength of it. Obviously, the stronger it is, the more most people are going to feel it, but there are other elements to it.
I would have guessed too, like, I don't know, but the Appalachians are like, just compared to say the Rockies or the Sierras, the coastal ranges, that the Appalachians are old, right? And they're old mountains, and that maybe just because of that, the any earthquake that happens they're more settled, they're more and as a result of that they would be felt longer and further away than they might on some of these newer ranges. But
the eastern rocks being older and kind of
more settled and more like
and
weathered,
not as
down
many
to
changes in the rock types. There's like one solid rock type, so things travel more. One thing I don't know if it's real or not, but I've been told that so all the pressure waves move through the earth, kind of like, and you don't feel them in the earth, you feel them when they get to the surface, so that if you're underground or if you're in a tunnel, you don't feel an earthquake. which is something like I've always wondered if that's true or not. It's when the seismic waves get to the surface that things kind of really go haywire. But
Hmm.
they travel through them almost like being underwater, and the pressure waves are moving through. You don't really feel them as much as when the breakers, right at the beach, something like that.
Something that happened with this one, and I think kind of happened with the last one, is, and I don't know if this is true, but my take is that if you were just sort of walking outside, let's say you're walking out your dog outside during the quake, you were less likely to notice it than if you were inside a building. And like City Hall in Philly, actually, they evacuated the building. They didn't understand what was happening at first, and they quickly got back to work, but they actually evacuated City Hall in Philly. Like that's how dramatically it was felt. But there are people I know that just didn't feel it at all. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Where we are, we're right on the fall line, the edge of the Piedmont here. And, and that the epicenter was up there sort of, I think, at the edge of that Kittatinny Ridge. So, probably kind of still along the fall line, which is, it's the same line that we're on here. Those that I think were on the coastal plain probably just didn't feel it at all, from what I can gather. But unless you were in New York, you're much closer. But
I got a bird related earthquake situation that in the south of Chile during the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in 1960. Like it was 9.8 or something, it was crazy big. And in the near the city of Valdivia, there were these fields that sunk like by about 5 or 6 feet, like just acres and acres of fields that just sunk due to this quake, and they became a massive marsh. And now it's like it's a wildlife kind of area with all sorts of blackneck swans and all that. And it didn't exist before the 1960 earthquake, which is crazy. But and that city is known for its swans now, right? But they weren't there before the earthquake. So at least not in those numbers. To think like you could have such a huge change in a massive part of the environment, from one quake gives you an idea of how powerful some of those big ones are, crazy.
Yeah, those ones crazy. I don't really want to be around for.
Yeah. My mom told me, was my mom or my dad, he was walking, my dad was walking somewhere and he fell to the ground. He couldn't stand up. The earth was shaking so hard. He said,
wow.
That was crazy. They all lived it, right? So, but hey, we've done things upside down. We usually start with what have we been seeing and doing bird-wise. Why don't we end this time with what is going on in terms of migration, birds, backyard stuff, gardening? We have a few minutes. Do you want to go, George?
Well, sure. I could wax on this stuff for ad nauseum, but I'll spare the good
people. Like I said, a
too.
few minutes.
Yeah. Hearing you loud and clear over there, boss. Yep, I gotcha. Yeah. Well, I actually today was like the first kind of spring day that I got out and really got after it a bit, and was I just haven't had much time, but it was really nice. It was like, dozens of ruby-crowned kinglets around singing, and thrashers are on the move, and eastern towhees are in bigger numbers than usual, and singing palm warblers, which is really the only time of year that I usually get to experience that, is right around here.
Yeah,
I've not heard it much elsewhere. Seldom really encountered them much on their breeding grounds, so I always enjoy that. One of the things that I enjoyed today was recording a swamp sparrow that was doing its sort of sub song, like a sub song or a sub plastic song. And it was just like, I heard it, and at first I was like, that's a weird warbler. And I couldn't place it. And then I heard an element, and I was like, but that sounds like a swamp sparrow. I was like, is this whole thing swamp sparrow? And then I finally figured out where it was coming from, got a little closer and made recording. And man, it was doing all sorts of weird stuff. Just like Yeah, so it was fun to just sit there and record this thing, watching it, giving it song, and also it was like kind of in the woods, which is not a very swamp sparrow like thing to do. So I bet it was a youngster, bird
I
that
mean,
hatched last year, and
I'm
it's just
thinking misidentification could be rearing its ugly head here. It doesn't
yeah.
sound like a swamp sparrow, and it's not in the habitat of a swamp sparrow. What
Hmm.
makes you think it was a swamp sparrow, George?
It looked like one, and I will send you the recording, Alvaro, for your edification. Yeah, it was cool. I really dug that, and yeah, that was fun. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I've been working in the garden a bunch. It's like all of a sudden everything's starting to pop. Molly, I'm sure it's the same for you. You probably got home,
Mm-hmm.
barely recognized your patch there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. I got home on Friday night and Saturday morning, woke up, let the dogs out, and I just kept on walking out the porch and just went
Yeah.
straight out into the field. And I've done a lot of that the past few days. And George, have you had much warbler movement over there?
Not really. Again, I haven't been out much, but palm warblers, yellow-rumped warblers, pine warblers. I know there's been some other stuff around. Louisiana water thrushes have been seen. I think there's been some prairies, maybe the odd yellow-throated warbler.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's yellow throats around and a few other things, but black and whites are probably around. But yeah, not, for me personally, no, I haven't seen much yet.
Yeah, well, I was curious about that. Just starting to have a bit here too. I've got 2 Louisiana water thrush that I hope are both on territory here
Oof,
in 2 different spots of the
nice.
creek, so that's fun. Yeah. Of course, still woodcock calling everywhere and stuff. But yeah, I just got chipping sparrow and brown thrasher, and I've got 3 bluebird boxes that are all filled. But I've been taking video of tree swallows just, oh man, laying into them. I haven't watched bluebird boxes consistently where there are also tree swallows before, but oh my gosh, these poor bluebirds that have been settled in here for a month have got just constant diligence now to watch out for them. So that's been pretty dramatic. But yeah, we've got a fox that comes many times a day through the trail camera carrying food into the woods, and I don't know where the den is yet, but that's really, really fun. And added mink to the property list.
Oof.
Finally got pictures of a groundhog, so that's good to add to my mammal list.
Wow.
Still chipping away at salamanders, and snakes should just be coming out more and more now. And
So do you have nesting woodcock at your place?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
my friend Angela is listening to this and is just probably salivating at the prospect of baby woodcock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2 summers ago, I found a nest, or breeding seasons ago, because we got the land 2 years ago, and then we've just kind of been coming back and forth until now. So no, I flushed a woodcock. I was very, very close to stepping on it, I guess just last night, right on the edge of the woods, and I don't think it had a nest there, but I really want to just take the thermal out and just look for them hanging out.
That's so
probably
cool.
First thing in the morning, and that's my plan of attack. But yeah, I want to spend a lot of time with them this year. And yeah, otherwise I'm just running around like a maniac with my camera, taking pictures of every wildflower and bee and butterfly and anything else I come across, and trying to iNet like crazy and log as much as I can. So the birds are all coming along the way, but my focus is really all of the things that I'm learning about right now on the land. It's fun.
Oh, cool.
It's a fun time of year. It's
cool.
Already getting overwhelming in a good way.
I mean, I haven't really done proper birding. I've been walking the dogs and going for runs, but just hearing Wilson's warblers kind of filling in all the little willow thickets, first of many, sort of migrant things. Hooded orioles have come back to the neighborhood, and today saw my first elegant terns on the coast here, and that's really cool because elegant terns when I moved out here ages ago, they didn't come until late summer post breeding. And now they come to breed in the Bay Area. So it's really wild to see this change. They've been moving north. So it's a whole new thing. It used to be like a vagrant bird, basically in April. Now it's regular, and they moved in to breed in San Francisco Bay. So it's kind of cool. The other thing that's really neat is I've privy to info tracking pink-footed shearwaters through, oikonos.org, a conservation group I'm involved with. That, if anybody wants to donate, please do. But they had folks put satellite tracking devices on these pinkfoots, and one of them has, like, just the last few days been shooting through, like, between South America and the Galapagos, and it's heading towards Mexico right now. And then the second one has just started from northern Peru. It's just like starting to shoot north, and it's just wild to sort of see them. Like, first they're just hanging around the Humboldt Current, kind of like getting fat, and then they just decide, okay, heading to California, and like you can just see the line changes, and that's been amazing. Like, you almost get in the head of the bird, And I know they arrive earlier than this, so the early arrivals are probably young ones from last year, and then these ones that are moving in are the adults after they bred. So we can sort of start saying, okay, the pinkfoots are probably going to arrive early May. That's something like that, or late April, and that's when the adults start arriving. It's cool to see the data. It's just so amazing. We're going to have more and more of that, where we can just visualize what's going on. It's amazing.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap up?
I wanted to give one shout out to one of our listeners and a friend of mine, Cecilia Dumois, who was birding at Fort DeSoto Park the other day. Took some photos of a funny flycatcher. He got home and started looking, saying, I think this might be a Paratic flycatcher.
That's a rare one.
Yeah, she sent the photos to me that night. Unfortunately, I didn't see the email to the next morning, but by that time, she and the Florida folks had figured it out. Indeed, a Paratic flycatcher, a hell of a bird. And then, of course, another one was found in Florida. That is a bird I've always dreamed of finding, kind of around in the mid-Atlantic someplace. I could picture one turning up someplace. I could picture hearing it, given their little call note from a treetop. But yeah, anyway, congrats to Celia. That is an amazing, amazing find. Really exciting.
Too in Florida. Florida is hot. It's been hot for like a year.
Yeah, it's true. Florida and Texas are like going toe-to-toe, trying to like decide, who's the king of vagrant birds.
Yeah, who's going to kick California to the gutter? Yeah, that's pretty wild. Anything, Molly?
Oh,
you got going on?
I'm settling in for the summer, so I don't have a lot of big stuff coming up. I'll probably be at some birding festivals this spring, so maybe I'll see folks there. Otherwise, I'm just hoping to run around here and plan stuff for months away from now. So nothing big going on.
Oh, cool. Well, for us, apart from Cuba in December, we do have Bhutan coming, same time of year. So late this year, alvarosadventures.com. Be really cool. That's another country that's like one of those unique places that you're like, whoa, I did not expect that. Bhutan. So
yeah, we've got a nice episode on that too.
Yeah,
I'll link it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. From the past.
Yep.
Blast from the past.
I'd remind folks too to sign up for the newsletter. Check out the newsletter.
Yep.
Lifeless newsletter. Go to our website. You'll see where you can sign up. It's cool. It comes twice a month, and it's got lots of good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. See you all later. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, everyone.